No, I think, excuse me, sir. I think I'm okay. I think, Mr. Fierro.
Mr. Fierro, you're gonna close it for us, please.
Take us home. I'm going to speak to a lot of different portions that some people have already started off with. The recommendations that we made, our goal is to nest our recommendations within CalVet's strategic plan. Mr. Borland talked to some of their marketing objectives, or the objectives that are appropriate for marketing, which was a 5% annual increase in the number of veterans in the database, increase in claims submitted by CVSOs and CalVet, as well as dollars received from those claims. Based on that, those objectives, our marketing strategy initially focused on getting more information about the veterans that CalVet doesn't have information on, and then communicating effectively with the 50% of veterans CalVet does have information on. So, for example, there's 1.8 million veterans. Roughly, CalVet had information as of a year ago on about half of those. So how do they reach the other half? And then the half that they do have, how do they effectively communicate? So we had 5 recommendations. I think a good portion of what Mr. Sullivan is talking about in branding is what we consider to be the positioning. It's important that CalVet's message was refined and consistently communicated. I think Senator Allen provided a great example today. It's difficult for the population of California, let alone the veteran population, to understand exactly what CalVet does. It's not clear. If you ask most veterans, they're going to say CalVet is veterans' homes and the home loan program. Well, they provide a lot more services than that, even if most of their budget goes towards the veteran homes. So positioning, branding is extremely important to communicate this message to all veterans as well as veterans' families. Social media is just a tool. When we talked about segmenting the population, that tool only reaches a certain percentage of the population. But if you think of CalVet as predominantly veterans' homes, then all you do is market to them. You're only going to market to those that are 55 and older. If you think of them just as home loans, they're only able to take advantage of that 25 years after they leave service. So then again, you'd miss out on certain veterans. So social media as a tool just reaches a certain percentage of the veterans, but it helps them to helps CalVet build their brand for the younger veterans that may not be able to take advantage of the services just yet. 2 key recommendations we had for the organization was, 1, to have a position that focused solely on communications and marketing. And it's great to see that Mr. Sullivan is taking that role and is extremely enthusiastic. The second piece that we felt was important was to get all of the information in one usable database. Right now, there was about, when we last looked at this, and I'm sure there's been changes, there were 7 databases that had information. Some of them were maybe just email lists. But having one single database that anybody within the organization who required access could access to help that veteran. It also helped better go after the metrics that they're trying to achieve, because there's so many different databases out there. It was difficult to understand exactly what percentage they had and what percentage increase they needed, or what the numbers were to achieve that 5% increase. I think we touched on CVSOs already. It's important to have that feedback loop. As you understand, CVSOs receive a significant portion of their funding not from CalVet, but they are an integral part of what CalVet does, and both CalVet and CVSOs need to work together as one. And I think they do a great job of that, although there's always room for improvement. And then finally, it was the partnership and outreach with other VSOs, in this case, veteran service organizations, not county veteran service officers, veteran service organizations to their lowest levels. I think CalVet does a great job of reaching those organizations at high levels, but I think where the rubber meets the road are the ground level, the bottom employees that actually deal with the veterans, and some recommendations on how to improve that. They already meet at a high level many times a year, and they do a great job of that. Those were the recommendations, but I'd like to close with the role and challenges of marketing in government. As you're only too well aware, it comes down to scarce resource allocation, and you have to make the tough decisions. Certainly you get input from your constituents, but then you must assess the appropriate return on investment, or ROI, of the resources that you allocate. An example of marketing by a government organization that is somewhat similar are those of our active duty services. So they spend a tremendous amount of money on marketing since they realize it directly affects their inputs. That's an all-volunteer force, to create and output the public demands, which is already well-trained armed forces. In contrast, you are faced with an impossible paradox, because like Mr. Bingham spoke to earlier, the more money you spend on marketing, you increase the input, and therefore, although the burden generally falls on the federal government, some does fall on the state government, you will then be expending more resources. And I think you illustrated perfectly what that roadblock through the system looks like. It was a great example. So how do you communicate that ROI, whether it's at a cocktail party or in any other case, to your constituents that this is important? And I'd like to give you one example that you could use. So if roughly $560,000 was spent in advertising and marketing to reach veterans over the next 5 years, so it was a $2.8 million in outlay, and you've heard some of the numbers on what that outlay in marketing and outreach gets to you in the terms of claims. And based on an average claim of $300 per year per veteran that's submitting a claim, you're talking about $54 million in benefits, which would be spent in California in services here. In essence, you'd have a 19x ROI, which any venture capitalist in Silicon Valley would look at very fondly. Of course, this is not an apples to apples comparison, because this is not something that's going back to the coffers of the state. But I'd only ask that you think of it that way, because it's the veterans that benefit from that investment in marketing outreach. And I think Mr. Bingham illustrated it greatly, say, hey, this would be a challenge, but it's a challenge you look forward to tackling. And I think we'd all want to see that happen. So as a vet, I'm clearly biased, and that probably comes through. But I think this is an investment worth making.
I thank you. I'm going to stop just for a moment and ask the Secretary to call the roll on the consent calendar. Senator Hueso's been very busy in committees all afternoon, and if he needs to get back, I'd like him to be able to. So would you call the roll on the consent calendar, please?
Senate Bill 159 do pass and be ordered to consent calendar. Hueso? Aye. Hueso, aye. It passed out.
Thank you, Senator. And we're wrapping up. We'll have some public comment, Senator, and then we'll be finished up today. Fierro, I thank you very much and for what you have done. And would you please acknowledge some of your team that have worked with Berkeley on this project? Would like to acknowledge them at least.
Certainly wasn't me. I was more of the ringleader than anything else. And we had a very impressive team. This was out of the Center for Nonprofit and Public Leadership, based out of the Haas School of Business at UC Berkeley. Our interdisciplinary team included students from School of Public Policy, School of Public Health. We had one international student, and although they can't be here today, while I was the one veteran, they dove in as if they were all veterans, and they cared deeply about this. So certainly it was a team effort.
Well, thank them for us as well. And you represented them very well today. You organized them and drove them, and you can see the benefit with Mr. Sullivan already taking hold within the department. Glenn, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I just wanted to offer our thanks to the Haas School team as well for their work throughout this process. I had the privilege of working with the same program when I worked for the nonprofit world in San Francisco, and it's a tremendous asset to have folks come in from outside and take a look at what you're doing and provide you opportunities. And like you said, you know, much of what the presentation here that Mr. Sullivan gave today is a direct result of that. And I think we're all the better for it, and particularly in terms of a lot of the demographic information and things that just quite honestly my staff doesn't have the time to step back and chase a lot of that information down. So Mr. Fierro and his team were very thorough and provided us with a lot of information and a lot of thoughts moving forward that we'll certainly take into consideration. So once again, the department is very grateful and thankful for your assistance in this process.
Well, you bet, and thank you for your service as well. We really appreciate it very much. And Keith, thank you again for all that you've done, and Chris, for being here today, and you gave us some insight into a very large Veteran Service Office and the challenges that are faced therein. We would have now just an opportunity for some public comment if anyone wishes to come up and.
Mr. Chair, I just had a very quick question.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't notice you, Senator Allen.
No,
Excuse
it's
me.
okay. I was struck by the comment that was made by Mr. Bingham, and I just wanted to get a better sense. I mean, how is veterans home eligibility determined? It does seem a very interesting situation that we're spending so much of our budget on a relatively small portion of our veteran population. Is these are the most acute needs veterans, or what is it?
I'll allow
haphazard?
Calvet to provide comment on that as well, but I will speak to it from the perspective of a county veteran service officer. When I meet with clients that are potentially contemplating going into a veterans home, I say to them, do it now while you're still ambulatory and you don't need the services. Because if you get to the point where it's long-term care or skilled nursing level of care, the perspective that our clients experience is that there's going to be a significant wait list for that, because many of the clients that are already in the homes are aging into those levels of care. Now, that being said, I'm in the Yountville catchment, which is one of the most popular veterans homes.
Where's that?
Yountville.
Oh, Yountville. Okay.
Yeah. And so there's a little more demand for residency at Yountville than some of the other homes. But oftentimes, I have a spouse that's at her wit's end because she can no longer take care of her veteran husband with dementia, and they want to put him in the Calvet home. And so the application process is you apply with the home. The applications are available online.
And it's like a first come, first served thing?
And I'll let Calvet comment on the rest of that, sir.
It's not a first come, first served per se. There are benefits, there are priorities. Somebody is, for example, the instance that Mr. Bingham described of a POW. POWs, Medal of Valor, or Medal of Honor recipients have priorities, and depending upon their military record and some of those and their needs, there are priorities. He is correct that the greatest demand we have is for the licensed care, the skilled nursing level of care, the memory care centers. When the homes were designed, when Yountville was designed, for example, it was designed more as a transitional facility. It took in domiciliary, as we call them, or independent living, up to the skilled nursing, and many a time the residents do stay there. But as Mr. Peterson noted in his testimony, we are reevaluating the demand and what we are able to do and how we need to change for what the demands of the population are. The demands and what the greatest generation, the World War II veterans, would be able and were willing to accept. Many a times were multiple people in a single room, for example, 2-4 people sharing a room. Nowadays, the demand is more towards a private room or semi-private room, for example. So many of our newer homes are designed with those kind of capacities, but our older homes are still in the older capacities. I'd be glad to get a much more detailed briefing for you on that priority, but the one thing I do want to stress, it should not be a choice between providing the services and care that we have for our veterans that are in our home and providing services through our Veteran Services Division or through the CVSOs. There is a demand for both, and we are trying to meet that demand as much as we can.
I absolutely agree with you, but of course, the sad reality is that most of our work ends up facing, those kinds of terrible choices, whether it be, funding a very deserving student in the particular community college versus the UC, right the way over to one transit project versus another that make a big difference for people. So I guess I'm just interested in how the department kind of struggles with the, the fairness issues, I suppose, as they relate to who gets those homes, who gets those home services versus others when presumably the services are much less intensive if you don't get the home services.
In terms of the Veterans Homes itself, there are specific criteria that are spelled out specifically in the Military and Veterans Code of what is some of the priority, as well as in Title 12 regulations. And as I say, I would be glad to walk through those. I'm not an expert in terms of the admissions, but there are various priorities. As I mentioned, Medal of Honor recipients, various valedictorian records. Peoples with various disabilities have a higher priority depending upon what, their needs are. The question also is whether or not if we can meet those needs, because in some of the homes we do not have, for example, if somebody needs certain mental health treatment, we don't have that capacity in some of our facilities, most of our facilities. But there's a matrix of things that we have to look at as to who is admitted. We do look at those who are in greatest need. If somebody is a homeless veteran or at risk of being homeless or in substandard housing conditions, those are people that many a times will be moved up to the top of a priority list as long as they meet the criteria for admissions to the home and that we can meet their needs.
Okay, thank you.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, sure. But I very much thank you for the answer and thank you for your offer to brief us.
I'll be glad to set it up. I'll
Thank you.
contact your office.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, and we would offer any opportunity for folks who would wish to come up and comment. We would love to have your thoughts. Please. Join us again. Joyce, thank you. There we go.
Is it on? Okay, it's
You're all
on.
set.
Yeah. I can't say enough good things about the county veteran.
Would you identify yourself for the record, because we need to keep it on.
Yeah, I was going to. Okay. Colonel Lorna Grease. I'm legislative liaison for Military Officers Association here in California. And as I said, I can't say enough good things about the county veteran service officers. They helped process my paperwork when I had a very serious illness. So anyway, that's not what I initially came up to say. As a veteran and a consumer of Calvet products, I've been excited to see the changes that have taken place over the last year. The user-friendly website, I've been able to send many veterans to that website to get their own benefits. The information flow that comes out of Calvet is wonderful. I email all of that to 42 chapters of MOA from the Oregon border down to San Diego. I've been able to access speakers for our luncheons and for our bigger meetings, and they've been very helpful. And I've also attended meetings myself. So I look forward to see what's coming. I hear a lot of good things.
Well, Colonel, we're working together, and it looks like there's even a better plan before us. And I think the members of this committee are very committed to working with them and with you. And thank you for your steady participation in our hearings. We value you being here.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen, Senator Allen. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to the committee. My name is John Melrose. I'm the Veteran Service Officer for Placer County. I just wanted to make two very fast points. Three, Calvet's relationship with the CVSOs is very good. We work very well with them, and we'll get better at it as we go on. Up to Senator Allen's point, something that you asked Chris Bingham was, they were very happy with the workings of a larger office. I just want to emphasize the point that these are not large offices. In my office, I have 2 claims reps and myself. That's it. And we do roughly 700 claims a year, and we're in a transition period, so I fully expect that to breach 1,000 in the next year. With the driver's license driving more work to our office, those 2 folks and myself will be even more heavily tasked. And the extra money the extra subvention money that we get from the state allows me to hire another person. Right now, with the extra subvention money, I'm able to hire a part-time person. If that money goes away, that person goes away. And therefore, we lose the ability to do anything. Or our lines get longer, as it was explained before. The other aspect I wanted to mention is that, by and large, the veterans that I speak to refuse to accept the goods and services that we provide. They don't think that they have earned the benefit. I argue this point on a daily basis, and I usually go through spouses. That's usually the most effective way to get folks to apply for benefits and then get the benefits, or to even increase the benefits, or even to get them to come in. because they simply do not want to take something from someone who is more quote unquote deserving. And it's a constant battle. So the education that CalVet is doing, that the CVSOs do, pay dramatic dividends. And again, I appreciate the committee's time and effort. I appreciate how much Senator Nielsen advocates on our behalf. I appreciate Senator Allen's questions, Senator Ross' questions. These are fantastic questions to bring up to the committee and then in part to the whole Senate and to the state government as a whole. But the extra subvention money, the money coming from I don't care where, will do nothing but allow us to proceed or to file claims more effectively, more efficiently with the Department of Veterans Affairs and then bring that money back into the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ted, you can be the closer here, my friend.
Yes, sir. I'll be real quick. Thank you, Senator Nielsen and Senator Allen, for allowing me to testify today. I just wanted to back up what everyone else is saying, that CalVet and the CVSOs are just hand in hand. We work so well together. It's better than it's ever been. And it's true, one of the biggest obstacles to veterans getting their benefits, they don't know about them, or they've heard about them, they don't know how to access them. Their best bet in this state is every county, 56 offices have county veteran service officers working in them. That's your best bet. We're trained. CalVet trains us. The VA trains us. 3 weeks a year we get intense training. It's pretty good training. And I'm just going to go over a couple little things here quickly about Solano County, and it's true for almost every county. Our participation rate, which is judged by the federal VA, is 30%. The national average is 17%. That means 17% of the veterans in any one given place gets benefits from the Veterans Administration. In Solano County, we're up to 30. We're almost double the national average and the state average. The reason for that is we have a big Air Force base there, Travis. I think one of the strategies that we're working on, we've already accomplished it, is to have a County Veteran Service Officer employee stationed right there at the base where these people get out. We have a TAP program there where 40 people a week get out of the service. That's the time to capture them. You get them right there when they have their service medical records. They're still in uniform. They got plenty of time. That's the time to file their claims and make sure they're aware of all their benefits. Our county has a vet court, many vet courts in the County Veteran Service Office land. And these are the veterans that come back, and we have 10 in our vet court right now. Almost all of them are combat vets who've had trauma, and they've got in trouble when they come back. We get them out of incarceration and into treatment. It's a win-win for everybody. We have assisted living facilities. Every county has those. I'm on a first-name basis with every one of these people, and most of the counties do the same thing. We have trained these people to screen their applicants when they come in. Did you serve in the military? If you did, here's your aid and attendance package. So the federal government will help them stay in the place. The assisted living facilities like it because it generates more income for the veteran. The veteran likes it because it takes some financial pressure off of them. Homeless outreach, we have two nonprofits in our county that do have designated housing just for veterans. We're on a first-name basis with them. Military and Veterans Committee, we every quarter we have a committee that gets together. It's an ad hoc committee where all of the veteran service organizations meet with our board of supervisors. It's about 50 to 60 people every quarter, and we go over all the new things that are happening with the VA. We have guest speakers, and it's really the glue that holds all the veteran service organizations together in the county. I do daily updates. I get a feed from the VA in Washington, D.C. I put that out to all of my listserv. I have about 500 people, veterans organizations in our county, and all the CVSOs every day about what's happening with the VA. It's very important to stay on the cutting edge because things change on a daily basis. We do monthly news. I have a column called Veteran Scene. It's free. It goes to every house that receives the newspaper, and I get calls from Florida, Texas, because somehow it gets Googled onto the internet, and you get calls from all over the country. The other thing CalVet does is that they send us the DD-214s. Every month we get a big stack of DD-214s electronically. We reach out to these people. We send them a letter. If they don't respond, we call them. We try to get these people in because they've just gotten out of the service, and that's the time for them to get their benefits. So anyway, all of the veteran service officers in this state do similar activities. So we couldn't do this without money. And as was stated before, about 20% of our budget comes from CalVet. We have this bill, I think it's 171. Hopefully the additional $3 million that we're asking for will be in the May revise. If it's not, 171 would really help us a lot, get that extra money to keep this operation going. All right? Thank you very much.
Mr. Newell. I want to thank the members of the committee. Please understand, ladies and gentlemen, the absence of some of the members is a product of them chairing committees or participating in bringing up bills. It's a very, very busy time of the year. They do the best they can, and they're all are attentive, or they would not be serving on this committee. I particularly want to thank Senator Allen, who has been with us almost the whole time, has taken a great interest in the veterans' issues, and I deeply appreciate his vigilance here. And thank all of you. You know, we've had a hearing already on the veteran service offices, and that gives some indication to the world that that's important to the legislature. Over the years, there has always been a Veterans Committee, and I'm only honored to be the most recent chairman of that committee. But in that that's been a committee for so long, it does acknowledge that the state Senate makes veterans issues important. I often say at all kinds of events that many don't wake up every morning thinking about veterans and veterans issues. And it's our job collectively to ensure that at least veterans come to their attention, and the plight of veterans and the accomplishments of veterans. You know, this just isn't about helping veterans who need. It's extolling the virtues of veterans who've come back and excelled and been a part of our lifestyles and created jobs themselves, made it in life, and overcame the traumas that they have had to experience, and then dedicate themselves to helping others. Ted mentioned our veterans who were incarcerated. That's a big deal with me. We had Mary Thomas, who has a program at San Quentin, come to one of our hearings talking about her efforts there to help the veterans while they're in custody, and then we're trying also to, through you and other means, to get help for those veterans who return to the community or been discharged and they have problems. That's our job, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your attendance at the hearing. The committee will take all things under submission, and you will see action on most of these issues because everybody here cares. Thank you. Thanks, man.